Hello everyone. Today we are going to study about cells and its structure and its function. Let's start with the plant cell structure. Just like different organs within the body, plant cell structure includes various components called cell organelles. Here you can see a plant cell on your screen. Let's start with the cell wall here. It's a rigid layer which is composed of cellulose, glycoprotein, lignin, peptidin, and hemicellulose. It is located outside the cell membrane. So you can see the cell membrane is here and the cell wall is here. It basically protects the cell. Exactly. The function is to protect the cell and provide a structural support to the cell. Now let's talk about the cell membrane. It's a semi-permeable membrane that is present within the cell wall, and it is composed of a thin layer of protein and fat. And the function is regulating the entry and exit of specific substance within the cell. This is the cell membrane, and it is a semi-permeable membrane. And the function is it allows specific substances to pass through the cell wall. Now let's talk about the nucleus. The nucleus. Here you can see this pink thing is called the nucleus. And this is known as the nucleus, and this is known as the nucleus. Nucleus. The nucleus is a membrane-bound structure that is present in a eukaryotic cell. You can see this. The vital function of a nucleus is to store DNA or hereditary information required for the cell division and metabolic growth. It helps in the metabolic growth. It stores the DNA of the cell and all that. Now let's talk about plastids. They are membrane-bound organelles that have their own DNA. They are necessary to store starch to carry out the process of photosynthesis. It is used in the synthesis of the molecules which forms the building blocks of cell. Okay, now let's move on. And the types of plastids are nucleoplast, chloroplast, and chromoplast. I'll show you this is the chloroplast. You can see this. Chloroplast, your chloroplast. Okay. I hope you're understanding. Okay. Now let's talk about the vacuole. Here. This whole green thing is called as a vacuole. It occupies around 30% of the mature plant cell. This is a mature plant cell, so it requires 30% of the whole plant cell. The function is to sustain turgid pressure against the cell wall. Okay, now let's talk about Golgi apparatus. You can see this. This is called Golgi apparatus. They are found in eukaryotic cells which are involved in distributing synthesized macromolecules in various parts of the cell. Now, the main function of Golgi apparatus is packaging and secretion of protein. Packages and secretes protein. Now, let's talk about rhizobium. You can see these small circle-like things, and these are rhizobiums. There are smallest membrane-bound organelles, which comprises of RNA and protein. It comprises of RNA and protein. They are also known as protein factories of cell. These small parts, small things are known as the protein factory of cells. Now let's talk about mitochondria. Here, you can see this mitochondria. They are double membraned organelles and are found in cytoplasm of the eukaryotic cell. They are also known as the powerhouse of cells. Here, this is mitochondria. Yes. Now let's moving on to movements in and out of cells. Yes. There are two kinds of movements that happen in and out of cell, which is diffusion and osmosis. Let's talk about diffusion. Diffusion is a physical process in which the substances or molecules move from a higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. The process occurs in three states, which is gases, liquids, and solids, and it's found fastest in the gases. It happens more faster in gases and compared to liquid and solid. Diffusion is the most important process and essential activity in human organs also. And the examples of this is movement in CO2 and O2, which is carbon dioxide and oxygen gas in lungs. Then is movement in water salts and wastewater products in kidney. It moves the movement of water salts and waste products in kidney, etc. Now let's discuss about osmosis. Osmosis is a passive process and happens without any expenditure of energy. It involves the movement of molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration until the concentration becomes equal in either of the membrane. You can see here the semi-permeable membrane. So it moves from a lower solute to a higher solute. Whereas in between the semi-permeable membrane is still there. There are kinds of solutions for osmotic. They are hypertonic, isotonic, and hypotonic. Now let's discuss first about isotonic solutions. Isotonic solution is one of that has what happens in this is that both like this, see, both the concentrations have equal amount of concentrations on each side. That's when it's isotonic. Equal solutes, equal water, no net movement, and it's normal. The cell remains normal. Now let's talk about hypotonic. In this, one of that is higher concentration of solutes outside the cell than inside. Outside it's more. You can see here, outside the cell, there's a lot of H2O, whereas inside. And it's higher water inside. The water cannot move and the cell shrinks. Now let's talk about hypotonic. Hypotonic is where you can see higher amount of solute inside, higher water outside. The water moves in and the cell swells up. Now here are some difference and similarities between osmosis and diffusion. Then in osmosis, the cell moves through a semi-permeable membrane. It's liquid only. It's present in liquid only. It can happen in liquid only. Then helps plants in absorbing water and maintaining stability, animals in transporting nutrients and maintaining water at a cellular level. Now, in diffusion, it does not pass through a semi-permeable membrane. It's present in solid, liquids, and gases, and helps in exchange of gases, transpiration, and photosynthesis. Now, here is the example of passive transportation. It's the example of passive transportation, means to equalize concentration of two solutions. These are the similarities. You can see it. I hope you're understanding till now. Okay, now let's revise. Today we studied about cell structure. Most importantly, plant cell structure. We studied about the cell wall, the cell membrane, nucleus, plastids, Golgi apparatus, rhizobium, and mitochondria. And then we studied about movements in and out of cells, diffusion and osmosis. In that, we studied that diffusion, the higher particle of matter moves to higher concentration to the lower. In osmosis, the movement of solvent, such as water, through a semi-permeable membrane. These are all 1-mark questions. So if they ask you the meaning, the definition, you can write this for a mark. If they ask you for 3 marks or 2 marks, then you have to write a little bit more. And then lastly, we studied about the differences and similarities between diffusion and osmosis. Thank you all for today. That's all, and thank you so much for paying attention.